Hey, NOSA community. I am back and I am back this time to talk a little bit about the application process. So today we're going to touch on what you may see as an application for workers' compensation, professional general liability, essentially business insurance. This is one of the applications that we were given as a renewal. So this is just a template. So it may look similar or a little bit more in depth. And the provider might even ask for you to provide your resume, kind of outlining your experience. So welcome back to our channel. My name is Shamika, and I want to be chatting with you guys about everything healthcare staffing. And today's topic, this next day or so, is going to be about insurance. As I mentioned in the last video, I'm not an insurance agent, so I'm only speaking about insurance from my experience. So it can look different state to state. Many times it does look different state to state, but I'm only touching on the things that may be consistent state over state, right? So like many companies may ask you to do an application. Many states have some sort of process for as far as applications. There are states that may ask you to have that already completed. So whether the order of it all in your state, you may be asked to do an application. So we're going to show you an example of an application that we completed. This is for a renewal, but the renewal looks very similar to the actual initial application. And if I have the initial application, I'll drop it here below in the comment section so you can see what it looks like. But the initial application doesn't look that different than this one. So I wanted to share and kind of give you some insight as it's been questions asked about, well, how do I know how to answer the questions? What do I do? What if? So we want to get that for you and get some of those answers, things answered and questions resolved. So since you're here and you've listened to me thus far, go ahead and click the follow button. Follow us now and get some updates as well. If you are free tomorrow at 1:30 p.m., join us on our TikTok at THENOSAGRP, where we'll be talking about everything payroll funding. So if you're not sure what payroll funding is, it'd be a great time to join. But if you have questions, feel free to drop them in the comments here or drop them on a post, and we'll get that question answered on our TikTok live that we'll also share here on our YouTube channel. So essentially, it looks like most applications for things of this nature, the only difference is actually asking about the business. You want to create a mailing address, location address. If you have a physical location, sometimes it's the same, sometimes it's different. The county is located, and then your generic contact information. And this is nice because they want to be able to get in touch with you and connect with you if they need to. So whether it be by mail, email, telephone, as well as with the website name, title, things of that nature, they want to verify your business. So providing that information isn't unreasonable. And then as we go to the middle bottom part section around the annual gross receipt. So as I mentioned, this is a renewal application, but for your initial application, it'll probably ask a similar question, but it may say estimated gross receipts. And then of course, estimated remuneration and over the last 12 months. So you can put your actuals, if you have numbers, put the numbers. But if you're not sure, I would encourage you to estimate on the more conservative side, because when you understand how insurance works, you want to make sure that you as a person covering people under your insurance is being, doing your due diligence and being conservative, especially as a new agency owner. So operating with some of these numbers conservatively is a great idea. If you have actual numbers, that's a better idea, just because you don't want to underestimate where you have to make a payment at the end of the year potentially, and then of course vice versa. Here it's asking how there been any significant changes in service you provide, and then typically on the initial application, it'll ask what types of services you provide. It may also ask in what types of settings will you provide those services. And then if we go to the second page, it'll go a little bit more in depth as far as those types of questions. If you have a commercial site, that you're working out of, this is kind of where you'll answer total permanent square foot occupied by insured. So this is, you actually have a physical building. So for me, I work from home. So it's not applicable. And what I would encourage you guys to do is your insurance agent, representative, account manager is there to help walk you through the process. So ask questions. In my initial application, I sent maybe 3 or 4 emails just for clarification, because you're kind of tying yourself into this insurance coverage for typically a 12-month period. So you want to make sure that, one, not only are all the bases covered for your business, but you also want to take into consideration that it's what you need. So it's what you're looking for. All right. So here at the 2.1 through 8, it's talking about staff. So total number of staff members. And when we talk about staff, don't forget to include the internal staff. So if you have VAs that work for your business that aren't necessarily contracted out, that are employees of the business, they should be included. Operations people, anybody who's an employee of the business, including the individuals who are going offsite to actually work in the clinical setting. What's your total number of patient client visits? Estimate next year. So a lot of the questions will be like specific, but you also can estimate, right? So as a business owner, you should have some of the estimated information around, like, what's your estimated budget? What's your anticipated revenue? How many clients do you anticipate to have? So those will be some of the questions you may see on an initial application. But understand that this is information you should have anyway. But of course, some of the things you may not have in completeness, you may not have exact numbers, but try to come up with something just to give yourself an opportunity to get a fair estimate. Total number of patients, estimate percentage of revenues from the following exposures. So this one lists pediatrics and living services. So we didn't do any of these. So typically NA is appropriate, but just to be safe, reach back to your representative and kind of say, hey, this isn't our population. What should I put here? And the reason I say that is because you don't want to complete the application, sign here at the bottom, and then it be reviewed, and that maybe the second or third person, they realize that you didn't indicate an answer on these 2 sections. And many times they'll tell you to skip it or just put NA. For residential exposure, please advise occupied beds, licensed beds. And this is information you can estimate or average based on the clients you're working with. And then, of course, age category should be pretty simple. This one is for hired and non-auto owned. Please advise number of drivers, non-emergency transport, medical art school. And some of the applications don't apply to what you may be doing. So just get clarification as to what the question is asking, especially this one, the 2.5 for hired or non-auto owned. Please advise the number of drivers. You want to make sure that they're not, classifying, your employee driving or traveling to assignment as a hired workers or anything of that nature. So, and then of course it has, if it's not required, you have the option here. So it's already built in that, this may not be the type of service that you're providing. 2.8, does the insured have any knowledge or event, circumstances, or occurrence, or does the insured foresee that a claim will be brought? This is important to share. There may be questions too around, have you ever had previous worker comp coverage? There'll probably be questions around how long you've been in business. Are you a small, woman-owned, minority-owned business? So just be ready to answer those. If you have any sort of designation, if you're like SBA designation or any of the others, you want to include that as well. So, and then once you do that, you kind of go in and answer, read through, sign, and date it. I tell people when we first got our insurance, and even for the renewal process, it didn't take very long. But because of the pandemic, a lot of that process is kind of no longer applicable. So it has taken longer and longer to begin the process. So having as much information as possible is really key, as well as getting the information as accurate as possible the first go around, so that you don't have to go back and redo or edit or make changes to those things. So as always, thanks for being a part of our community. We're glad to have you. If you have any questions about those things, feel free to reach out. Please take note, I am not an insurance broker, so I have my own limitation as to how I can help. A lot of the information, whether it be for the initial application or supplemental applications, typically have or should be accessible to you as far as answers through your business plan. That's why it's important to put together a business plan. Over this next weekend, we'll be sharing more about the pieces and elements of a business plan that are really key and essential, and how to maybe put together a business plan summary to get you up and running. So thanks as always. Don't forget to follow us. Hope to see you tomorrow, and we will be chatting with you.